All right, so we're going to look at the side view first. And you have a good game. You have good power. I think you're not using your legs enough and using your upper body too much. Okay? Legs are stronger than arms. So we're going to kind of switch that around. And, even though bowling is a sport that involves a swing with the upper body, it has more to do with the legs. Think about even like baseball at bat or softball. Bad hitters just stand there, steady at the plate, and swing really hard with their arms. The good hitters, it's all that lower body motion the arms follow. So a great powerful swing with a bat involves the legs a lot, which sounds kind of weird. But all these swinging sports, even golf, they all involve a lot to do with timing, leverage, and balance for power, not muscle for power. And the more you muscle, the more inconsistencies you invite because it's hard to repeat muscle. We take some of the muscle out, you're going to use more momentum and the weight of the ball and gravity. Those things don't change. Okay. So let's take a look at the first shot here. And this will play the same shot over and over. Okay. So what I see is some pretty short steps on 1, 2, 3. Okay. And if the steps get small, you have to rush your arm to get the ball in the position. And you have a big swing. Now, I don't care about the height of the backswing, and you kind of need the backswing height to accommodate ball speed to accommodate rev rate. I care how it gets there. I think you're pulling it around. Okay? In the push weight, I think you're being too forceful. You're locking. Okay? And you think about the push weight and the first step happen at the same time. So you have a big push and a small step. That really doesn't even sound like it would match. Okay? I'm going to show you a couple people here. We'll start with one of the young guys on tour. We'll start with Marshall Kent. Very powerful, good ball speed, pretty high rev rate. You don't see really small steps. Right. Now, we never want slow and careful. Slow and careful does not equate with power. So notice there's nothing slow with footwork. He kind of builds momentum, but it's nice normal sized steps to start with. If you watch his push away, he doesn't lock out. Okay? Another really good example for you would be somebody like a Rick Steelsmith. Now, how tall are you?
5'7".
Okay. No, so is he, but he tells everybody he's 5'8".
Yeah, 5'7" and 3/4.
Okay. So very similar height. Now look where he's standing. I know it's hard to see where the dots are on the video here, but the dots on the approach are right about there. You tend to stand up here.
Yeah.
So where you're starting, you don't have room for bigger steps. So I'm definitely going to move you back on the approach. Okay. Now same thing with him. Very powerful bowler, higher rev guy. Looks very smooth and fluid. Very similar swing. Okay? Look at his footwork. Fluid steps, he's building momentum, but the steps are not small. He's getting right up to the foul line. So let's use him as our example. Stance position with you two will be pretty much the same as far as body position. No big difference. You're holding the ball a little bit higher. That's not a big deal. Okay. Pretty close. Okay. Let's go to his step 1. He's going to ease the ball out into motion with step 1. It's a normal size walking step. The ball goes out and down. So the center of the ball gets right around belt level or just below it. So you see now the hand is below the elbow. Let's go to your step 1. You start pushing a little before you step. Okay, and that's very hard to notice except in slow motion. Watch your elbow, right there. And I like when people have a stripe on your shirt because you can see it better. So you're kind of pushing as the heel comes up, but not as the step moves forward. You're locked already. He's not locked out of the extension. And see, when you're locked, it pulls your shoulders forward. Okay? So the height of the ball is a hair lower than his. Not much though, but a couple inches lower. Well, you pushed earlier. Okay. Well, you would think if the step's smaller, you wouldn't have time to get lower, especially with a big push. Well, you did push a hair early. So if we take away the early push, we'll go back a couple tenths of a second. Okay, it's not down early, but you're locked. It takes force to lock with a weight in your hand. So we're going to work on the feeling of one, a later push to not be early. And once something's a habit, it's hard to feel. And muscles don't think, so you cannot reason with something that doesn't think. You can't say push on time. Your muscles told you were. And muscles are liars. Videos and mirrors aren't. Okay? It's also going to feel like a smoother, to you it's almost going to feel like a half or a three-quarter push to not lock. Okay? You'll also, we're going to have you feel like it's a bigger first step. So, but we can't think two things at once. We're going to work on one thing at a time. But a good way to practice this is at home with a mirror. You have a mirror to your right, you set up with the ball, same basic stance, no big change. But you're going to take one step and stop. Arm and foot together. So if you watch in the mirror, you see your arm start to move before your foot says, oh, I'm pushing early. You see it as you do it, and then you start to associate what you're doing with what you're feeling. Okay? If you're soft and smooth, you won't lock. That ball should go out and down, but not quite lock. It takes force to lock. And that pulls your shoulders more forward. Okay? You're also going to see the size of your step when you watch yourself in the mirror. Okay? So a lot of what we're going to work on is actually the start. Because everything is a chain reaction. Alright, so again, relationship to the body, if I draw a line over from the center of the ball, maybe just a hair below the belt. Hair below the belt. Got there differently though. And you can see in the picture, you look more forced and tense. Okay. On his next step, he has another fluid, kind of normal size step. The ball will get right about butt high in the backswing, which is common with an overhead high backswing. Okay. Let's go to your next step. Well, your ball passed his, and your step is less than half of his. And you think with a shorter step, the ball wouldn't have time to get there unless you pull it back hard. Now, when pulling it back hard is a habit, you don't know you're pulling it back hard. It feels normal. But when you look at it that way, it's like, wow, my step was smaller, but the ball passed his.
You can see I'm still unlocked here.
Well,
Ish.
and once you're done with the push, once the ball falls, we want your arm straight. But you shouldn't have to think about being locked. When there's a weight on the end of your arm, it'll be straight in the swing unless you use your muscle. Okay. But notice, you guys are the same height. You look a lot shorter. When you pull weight backward, your body goes over forward more. Okay. So once you're done with that push, we want you to feel like the ball falls down and around to the swing. You're pulling it down around to the swing. Pulling requires muscle. Let's go to the next step. He'll be at the top of the backswing at the end of the next step. So you're also at the top of the backswing. Your backswing got a little bit higher. You can see the angle of the arm. But there's another shorter step than him. So he's using his legs better. Okay? Now, he's also a lot older than you. And he used to have more muscle and pull his swing around until he blew his shoulder out.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So we don't want that to happen to you.
Right.
Okay? And he is almost 20 years older than you, by the way. Not in this picture, but... Okay. So, again, he has power, you have power. You're working harder for your power. Okay? At the finish, we want to see the slide stop, ball come through. Great position there at the foul line. Let's go with you. Foot stop, ball come through. Not a bad position, but you definitely popped up more. If you pull through hard, it's hard to stay down. So I don't see the finish as an issue. I see it as a result of the other stuff. Correct. Okay. If we talk about the shape of a push away, we always want kind of a smooth, small, rounded motion. So it's almost like it's going to trace another bigger ball, like those big exercise balls. So he's going to let his push weight kind of fall around this other ball. A small rounded circle like a backward C. Look at the shape he creates. Small rounded circle. Okay. If we look at your push away shape, one, you can see it's quicker and more abrupt. You're being forceful. It's kind of round. It might be a hair more elliptical than round. Okay. But you can see in a video that's more force than his.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's the goal with you today. We're going to smooth everything out. Okay. You will not lose power. You're just going to work less. Okay. And there'll be a lot less body position change. Watch the level of your head. It starts up, it goes down, it comes back up. That's a lot of position change in your head. Okay? When we see more upper body motion, that's a result of overworking with your right arm. Let's watch Rick again. Watch the level of Rick's head. Not much change. Just gradually goes down.
Makes you more consistent.
Exactly. But again, he's not trying to keep his head steady. He's not yanking his swing around so his head stays steady. Another really good example, I'm going to show you this guy here. Now, do you play golf?
A little bit.
Okay. Golf and bowling are really, really similar as far as it's hard to believe you can have power without the work, and it sounds easy to back off. Okay. When you watch a good golfer, they look very smooth and rhythmic, but they don't look like they're working hard. But their ball goes far and it actually goes where they want it to go. Everybody else swings hard to hit it far. It doesn't go as far maybe, and it goes everywhere. And they work hard to hit it badly. Okay? This is a good example of using the lower body, not using much upper body. Look how loose and fluid this looks. Plenty of power, plenty of rev rate, not working with the upper body. Look how loose the arm, it's like it's floppy ragdoll loose. Okay? And again, not much body position change. Okay? So when these guys get to the end of their approach to here, they simply let their work continue. I can see where you're working more at the end, trying to make power. Okay? But your body is smart to use something. If it's not the lower body, that leaves the upper body. Look at, now he takes like a little 5-step so you can ignore the first step. Look at the other 4 steps. Nice fluid, normal size step. Again, not slow and careful. He's building momentum, but he has time of footwork to have time of swing without rushing it. Look at the push away. Small rounded motion, he's not locking. And it's not forceful. Okay? So that's what we're going to work on with you. And I think it'll make a really big difference for the better. Let's go to back view stuff. If we look at swing direction first, really not too bad. There's a little motion there, but I think that's related to the lower body motion. If you watch your lower body, from start to finish you don't drift much. You're going around the long way. So you have a little curve in there. Okay? Now from the side view, you can see how your steps are small. And you have a big swing, a big push and a big swing. So your body has figured out, well, you know what? We don't have room of distance for steps, so let's make a curve. That'll give me a little bit more time. Okay? Because you think about it, if you walk a straight line from here to there, it wouldn't take as long than if you did this. So your body figured out a way to give you more time. That's not a conscious decision. So I think when we move you back and have you think about walking more fluidly with bigger steps, you might have a straighter walk. If you don't, then we're going to work on it. I think your first step, it's called a crossover step, but I think you're overdoing it. It actually does cross over. Okay? If we show you a good example here, we really want that step just coming in front.
That's always been something that I've always tried to accomplish.
So it's called a crossover step because I think that just sounds better than the in front step. I don't
Right.
know. But he really just went in front, you actually crossed over. Well, then every action has a reaction. Now, his next step will stay straight. Well, your step is in the way of your next step. And also, a sideways step takes longer. Okay? So now you're way out of position compared to your target.
Oh yeah.
Okay? So now your next step, see how it points to the right? His next step will be straight. And then you're going to come back with your slide to the same board you started on. He's just going to come back under himself. So if you watch in real-time motion, and this is a 5-step approach, but if you watch in real-time motion, it's like he's walking on a 2x6.
Right.
His step 2 would be your step 1, it just goes in front. The rest are just pretty straight. Now, if you were walking on a 2x6, it would really feel bad on step 2 because it wouldn't have ended up in a good spot. Okay? So when we move you back and think about bigger steps, we'll kind of monitor the direction. It may correct itself. Okay? If it doesn't, you would first try to fool yourself on step 1. I would have you feel like step 1 goes about a board or so to the right. It really won't. It will be less left. And maybe that'll correct step 2. So when you work on direction of footwork, you always correct one step first and see what else happens. If step 2 is still going left, you would have to think, okay, step 2 will go a little bit to the right. And usually, your 3 and 4 going to the right, I don't think that's the issue. They had to because of what happened on 1 and 2. Your body was smart enough to figure it out. It'll be smart enough to know, okay, we don't have to come back, we're already there. Okay? Bodies are smart, but that can be cleaned up. And that just falls under the category of having cleaner lines. The more direction change you have, the harder to repeat it. So all these little things are factors in what happens on the lane. And not only with consistency of shot, but consistency of ball reaction. Okay? Finishing position is not bad, but you can see how you're kind of popping up. That's a result of being forceful. Even if you watch your head compared to the masking unit, there's a lot of change there at the end. Okay. Let's go to a close-up. We'll look at hand motion and release, which I think will look good just watching your ball roll. So push rate is good. You're right on the back of the ball there. Now you're kind of on the inside. Is that intentional or is that just happening?
Probably just happened.
That's absolutely fine. Okay. Let's go to the release. Good, you're right on the back of the ball. That's very, very good. A little rotation with the fingers. That's a very good release motion. No issue. And that is a huge positive because most people I see that pull the string around turn early. Okay? Now, that being said, I can kind of see with you it would almost be the opposite. We can get trapped on the back and get lots of end over end and not get tilt. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but if you're forceful, you don't have the freeness to go through and around. You just go through, and then it's a lot of end over end or read early and almost roll out if the lanes are dry. Okay? Now, I'm going to compare you to somebody else here. I'm going to use Chris Barnes. And Chris is pretty powerful. I'm going to get Chris to about the same point of the swing here. Right? So that's about the same point of the swing. Now, Chris's head really isn't that much bigger. He's not bent over as much, so we see more of his head. Okay? And we see it like half of your head. When I see people lead with the chest, that's because they were too aggressive with their upper body. The more you pull up, the more you go down, and then you come back. Okay? Now I want you to watch, as I click through the release, I want you to just watch Chris's head. That didn't move a whole lot, did it? Okay. Let's watch your head. Well, that moved your whole head already. Okay, and then you pop up even more. That position change is a result of the other stuff we talked about. Okay. So, again, most times you have balance despite what's happening. Most people that pull their string do not have balance. So you have a nice game, but it can be cleaned up a little bit. Okay. All right. Everything makes sense. Okay. Good. Let's stop recording here.